Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Why, hello everyone, and welcome to a new exciting episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How is everyone doing, by the way? How has your weekend been? Because I know that, let's just say the weekend that we just went through, it was a lot. Maybe something has happened to you personally, but I'm specifically referring to what has happened in the news because, oh boy, everything that has occurred, both in animation and just the news in general, let's just say it really made things hyped up for today's episode especially. I mean, I've actually seen throughout the weekend where there have been some people who actually commented that, oh boy, sounds like Matt's got a lot of material to work with for the next episode of the podcast. Like, I did not expect that there would be some people that when they would see a lot of the news that would be reported and that I would make my little post to go and answer what the fridge is going on, or at least my reaction to it, people were anticipating for what would be to come with this episode specifically, to hear about what I have to say with a lot of the madness that has been going on, especially during the weekend. But don't you worry, folks, I will get onto that later in the episode. I will be saving a bit of those for last. But still, though, we got some major animation news also to go and unfurl. So this is going to be a major case in which we got a massive dose of both the cartoon and the crazy, which will result in one unforgettable episode. And before I continue, I just want to go and also quickly mention how throughout this week, or during that one weekend, we had a lot of very unfortunate passings. Like, there have been a lot of people who had passed away, from Richard Simmons to Shannon Doherty to Shelley Duvall, and many, many others. Even just on the weekend alone, you could fill that entire in memoriam list with all those people just on that short amount of time alone. So it's very unfortunate and a bit heartbreaking to see all of those people pass away. So may they go and rest in peace. But still, though, I just wanted to go and make that clarification, just do a quick little shout out on that. But we still got a major episode to go through. So I hope you are ready, because I don't know if there is anything that will prepare you for this episode. I don't even know if I'm prepared for this. But still, though, might as well go and ask just in case. So, chat wall, I'd like to know from you, are you ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear it, folks. Are you ready? All right, let's see now. Ready, let's do this. No. Okay. That's great to hear. Well, this is gonna be a pretty wild one. So with all that said and done, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And with our first episode, we might as well go and try to ease in onto what we have in store. And with the first one, I might as well go and discuss about SpongeBob, considering that we are in the year, or we are around the time when SpongeBob is gonna have its 25th anniversary, or technically its official 25th anniversary, considering that it was in mid-July that the first episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, specifically Help Wanted, actually made its premiere back in 1999. 25 years ago. Sorry for that little mistake there. But it seems that with this summer of SpongeBob to celebrate its 25th anniversary, one way to go and celebrate that is to go and why not release a brand new SpongeBob movie? It's been a little while since we've had the last one with Sponge on the Run, and even though this one is not theatrically released, we might as well have something in order to go and really celebrate that. Not just with the TV shows or with a little special, but I mean at least with a movie. So, with that said, for our first story, let's go ahead and check out the trailer for the upcoming Netflix SpongeBob movie, Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. And that is Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, to which it will be coming out it will be coming out on Netflix on August 2nd. Now, I'm just going to go and state this right now. Might as well go and immediately begin by addressing the elephant in the room. Now, for some of you, this might be your first time to go and experience what SpongeBob will have in store with Saving Bikini Bottom, or specifically SpongeBob and Sandy, with what they have in store with this brand new movie. But there might be some of you who have already seen it, especially way early this year. You might have remembered when, for some reason, I don't know who, I don't know how, I don't know why, but there was someone who decided that they got the full Sandy Cheeks movie and decided to just go and upload it on the internet. Just upload it entirely as is, just for the whole world to see for free. Like, just completely leaked it right out of nowhere. And some people decided, okay, they're just going to go and take it. And there have been some people who did witness the movie very early on. And honestly, I can definitely believe that that Netflix or Paramount would go and completely save it. Like, they would have it already finished for quite some time before they would go and actually release it. It kind of reminds me a lot of the last SpongeBob movie with Sponge on the Run, in which Canadians were able to first see it during the summer of 2020, but the rest of the world, and especially Americans, they didn't get a chance to go and watch it until next year, or March of 2021. So it does put me to believe that, yeah, they could go and have it already done. Like, maybe they've already finished the Sandy Cheeks movie back in like 2023, and then suddenly someone has it on file and decided to go and show it to some people, which gave the opportunity for some to have already seen it months prior before its premiere on Netflix. Now, I'm just going to go and state this right now. I did not actually see any of the leaked footage from the Sandy Cheeks movie. I was definitely aware that it got leaked and that the file was spreading around for people to go and check it out, but I didn't actually get a chance to watch it entirely myself. Especially back then, I didn't even have the time to go and do so. But with that said, for me, like, this is actually my first true look into Saving Bikini Bottom. Like, this is the first time that I've seen any of those, like, true clips, or seeing the characters in action, or seeing little pieces of what the movie shall have in store. Other than images, of course. I'm saying, like, video-wise, with what they would go and present. And I'm just gonna say, I think I understand some of the early reactions, because those people who have seen the Sandy Cheeks movie early on through those leaked footage, they pretty much said that, yeah, this movie is bad. Like, and it's not like subpar or it's weaker compared to the other SpongeBob movies. No, they would say that this is full on bad. And I don't want to go and judge this immediately, but there's a part of me that I look at this and I feel like, yeah, I kind of see why. Like, number one, I just want to go and state that conceptually, I'm definitely on board. I could see how you could go and make a Sandy Cheeks spin-off film, and you can make that actually work, where you would go and focus on one of the other SpongeBob characters, one that doesn't often have as much focus as either SpongeBob or Patrick or Squidward or anything like that. Like, give the main focus to Sandy and really make it be all about her, where you could probably make some kind of Western kung fu movie. The possibilities are definitely there to make something that is fun, funny, and action-packed. But in this case here, with what they are presenting, story-wise, you know what this honestly reminds me of? Finding Nemo. Like, that seems to be what it is. It ain't Saving Bikini Bottom, it's Finding Bikini Bottom. Especially when you have people whom they decided they're just going to go and completely take Bikini Bottom, like, just dig it up from the ground and just pick everything, pick it all up and bring it to the human world. Like, at that point, there's just so much of it that I cannot help but feel like now you're entering into Finding Nemo territory, especially when, like, suddenly you're bringing in all these characters, like, in the surface, and now they're going to be treated as pets, similarly to what we have seen with Nemo when he entered into the dentist's office with all the other fish. You know, it really has that similar kind of vibe that I would get in terms of the narrative, except now they're emphasizing more to be like a SpongeBob movie, you know, try to be a little bit more around that and have the theming be similar to what we have seen with stuff like the first two SpongeBob films, with the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and with Sponge Out of Water, where the narrative does involve the characters getting themselves out of the ocean and suddenly finding themselves in the surface world, where there is indeed elements that actually do mix animation with live action. And that's another thing that I want to go and actually criticize, is honestly the animation, where for some reason they decided to go and switch up the style again. That's always, I don't know why, but this seems to be the weird thing about these SpongeBob movies now, that somehow, like, going from one movie to the next, like, especially with the sequels, they decided to go and completely change the animation style with how they want to do computer animation. They started off on a strong note with Sponge Out of Water. That I thought it was actually very good. And then they decided to switch it up again with Sponge on the Run, which, I'll be honest, I didn't really like that movie. I thought it was just okay at best, but I will say the best part about it is the animation style. I love the way that they actually went and updated. Like, some of the textures are honestly a little bit weird, and they might go a little bit too much on it, but still, like, the animation where they decided to go and be a bit more stylized, I thought it was pretty good. This, however, I feel like it was a downgrade. And honestly, it was at the point where you see them on the airplane, where I look at this, especially with this SpongeBob, you know what this reminds me of? Battle for Bikini Bottom. Like, now the animation somehow has this quality that reminds me a lot of the video games. Like, I look at this, and I actually just have it near me, like, just, hold on, right over here. Like, this is actually what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Battle for Bikini Bottom with that style of animation. Okay, like, I'm not saying it's like exactly like Battle for Bikini Bottom. I know it might sound a little bit harsh right there. Maybe, okay, like, this reminds me of the same kind of animation that you would find in the remake of Battle for Bikini Bottom. It has kind of that video game-like quality, and that they're trying so much to have some throwbacks to classic SpongeBob moments, like this one right over here, when SpongeBob first met Sandy, and that he first enters the tree dome, and then suddenly he's like really dried up and has this expression. Like, it kind of reminds me a lot about that, where this is what video game developers would go and do with their graphics and try to implement these little throwbacks, but they just don't seem to work as well, especially when there are times when it wants to be as stylized as Sponge on the Run, but I don't know, there's a lot of it that doesn't seem to work, especially with this animation style that they're presenting. Like, even with this moment over here, let's just like quickly get back at this.
What's going on?
What? I washed my hands.
Yeah, like this, I don't know, it it doesn't really work as well. And also on top of that, like, maybe this is just from the trailers we have seen, and maybe there are some parts that are honestly a bit better, but even like, it's because of that animation where it feels like the comedy is not as strong as it could possibly be, where there's something about the timing or this animation style doesn't seem to deliver the gags as well as some of the previous CG SpongeBob that we have seen in the past. So I'm just going to say overall, with all of this, I'm starting to feel like now I'm starting to believe what people have been saying back when the Sandy Cheeks movie was leaked, and I could see where things can go wrong and that this might be as bad as what those people say they are. You know, like, you got the narrative that sounds a lot like Finding Nemo that honestly doesn't seem as appealing, or it doesn't seem like it's taking advantage as much on the whole concept of this Sandy Cheeks movie. The comedy is just not there, honestly, and the animation feels like a significant downgrade compared to what we have gotten in the previous movies. So I'm just gonna say overall, like, maybe there might be a chance, and maybe there are some surprises that are in store within that Sandy Cheeks movie that I'll wait and see. But so far, I'm just gonna say that my optimism for this movie right over here, it really went down quite a bit. But if you are curious to go and check out the Sandy Cheeks movie, then keep in mind that it will be coming soon on Netflix on August 2nd. So with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what did you all think about Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, or at least the trailer that we have just seen right over here? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not enjoy it? Or especially if you were one of those people that did see the full movie back when it was leaked, I would like to know your thoughts on it. And also, I just want to say, I actually did test this prior, but good news, it looks like Twitch managed to fix some of the things in their system, and we can actually do polls again. So let me just go and celebrate this by making a poll right now, and I'm just going to go and ask, will you be watching the Sandy Cheeks movie? So, here, I'll just do that. So then I'll write yes, and then I'll write no, and then we can finally get back with the polls. Finally, it's about time. All right, but anyways, let's go and read what you all have to say, because now this is your part of the show. Let's see now. Well, I haven't seen the leak myself. But I have wondered how the fridge did the movie get leaked. But yeah, I could tell from seeing this trailer, I could tell the animation can get a little bit off. I mean, if they choose to keep it 2D or go in the same studio that did Sponge on the Run, it will be better. Not great, but better. All right, fair enough. I already saw this whole movie when it was leaked a while back. I won't spoil it, considering many of you probably haven't seen it, but I wasn't impressed. I've come to expect garbage from SpongeBob, and this movie provided plenty of it. With Paramount Plus being on its last legs, I'm not surprised that Paramount sold this movie to Netflix to make a few bucks. But now that you mention it, this movie is basically a dollar store Finding Nemo. So my intuition from seeing the trailer is correct. And we got a confirmation for someone who has seen the movie. And the fact that you weren't impressed by it, oh boy, this is not looking good. Not that excited now when it's going to be my turn to do the review of the movie. Anyways, oh, and we actually got another one who has seen the feature. As one of the few who watched the movie when it leaked, I gotta say, this trailer paints way too flattering a picture of it, and even then, not by a lot. The animation was fine, and I like that it has a reason to be about Sandy, but the comedy was pretty weak, and the villain's plan makes no sense. I will give this more credit for one particular scene. I won't dare say what it is for the sake of spoilers, but all I say is that it's something straight out of a horror film. Okay, that is interesting. I'll be keeping an eye on it. I'll be curious to see what that is. Let's see, what other comments would there be? I was actually one of those people who saw the leaked movie back in January, and I will say that the movie leaves me very confused and broken. It really makes me think it's so random it's bad. I'm sorry to say this, but after watching the leaks, I'm not too pleased of giving this another watch. The humor is cringe and the animation is pretty amateur. This is definitely the worst SpongeBob film. Whew, oh boy. Yeah, that's not a good sign. Let's see what other comments would there be. Just want to make sure. Okay, I'll go with, okay. I'll go with this one. Sheesh, it seems like a lot of you in the chat wall have actually seen the movie. I remember seeing the movie back when it got leaked, and I thought it sucked, and this trailer really didn't change my mind. While it has interesting ideas, it is poorly executed, the animation seems cheap, and the humor feels off. And it's because of stuff like this why I'm so turned off by SpongeBob nowadays and how Nickelodeon is milking it for all it's worth, and why I'm really not looking forward to the Plankton movie next year. Oh, that is true, and there is a chance that, yeah, it's most likely gonna be the same thing. If it's not, you know, if they're just gonna have one that's just the Plankton movie on Netflix, and then there's the SpongeBob movie that'll be out in theaters, chances are that Plankton movie will probably be around the same quality as what we got here with the Sandy Cheeks movie. Eesh. And just to let you know, by the way, on the poll that I put up on Twitch, it seems that a little over half of you will want to watch the Sandy Cheeks movie. 54% said yes, you will be watching it, while 46% actually said no. Pretty balanced, I will say. It's rare to see that the polls that you guys would interact with would be like 50-50, but honestly very interesting. Anyways, let's see now. Where else? What other comments would there be? This seems fine. I don't have any real expectations for the movie. It just exists, and that's all it is. I like Sandy Cheeks. She's cool. I might watch it with my sister on one of our movie nights. Something that we just want that is a dumb, fun movie. That's what Sponge on the Run was for last year when our dog, when our dog passed away. I wouldn't say Hillenberg is rolling in his grave because that's dumb. You didn't know the guy. Well, no, I'm not really saying it. Now, has my my broadcast has ended? I have no, like, have you tried refreshing? Just in case, like, if you want to go and fix that. But anyways, let's see what other comments. I think I'll just read, I'll read two more okay, no, okay, now there's more coming up. Anyways, do you know who else is coming out on August 2nd besides the Sandy Cheeks movie that is coincidental to somebody's birthday? My mom. Regular show joke aside, this trailer over here looks exactly like the one I saw on the leaked version, and it is no different. I said my thoughts that it was terrible after seeing the leaked version, and I wouldn't recommend it. Like Squidward said, we're doomed. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Here's my thing. I'm guilty of seeing it early, which if people knew me, they know why. And deeply, I'll never state it wasn't, well, good. But I'm lying to myself to say even the third film was better than this. It had ideas and some moments that could be funny, but everything else was lackluster, and I feel like it barely feels like a comedy, and the animation is more humorous than the jokes themselves. It's not so much of a great film, but I won't say it's terrible. Okay. As someone who grew up with SpongeBob as a child, this honestly looks terrible. Okay, now we got from one person saying it's not terrible, and now we got to another person saying, like, nah, yeah, it is terrible, actually. Anyways, I haven't seen the leaked footage for this movie, but I can see why it got negative reception from people who saw it earlier. The comedy is not funny, and even the animation feels like a downgrade from the last one. If the new upcoming SpongeBob movies are going to be the quality of the Sandy Cheeks movie, then I don't want it. So yeah, it seems that many of you are not necessarily happy to see with what SpongeBob and Sandy has ended up becoming with this new movie. But still, it sounds like some of you that even though maybe you're not expecting the best thing to come out of it, it might be worth checking out. So, if you are still interested in watching Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, then keep in mind that the film shall be coming out on August 2nd on Netflix. And we're going to be going on to our first break. And when we do come back, we're gonna go and return with what is easily the biggest animation news that we have received in the week. Now, I've already talked about it a little bit before with that discussion with what Eddie Murphy has revealed, but now it is official. We got the true word that the franchise is not Ogre yet. All right, welcome back. Now, when it comes to our next story, this is kind of like a little bit of a continuation to a previous story that I've talked about not long ago, specifically in regards to what Eddie Murphy has said, in which he was the first to reveal that DreamWorks Animation is currently at work on not just another Shrek movie, but also the Donkey spin-off film. Now, we don't necessarily know, or back then, we didn't necessarily know any other info, other than the fact that Eddie Murphy said that, oh, maybe it's going to be coming out in 2025. And that I knew it wasn't true. And I made my prediction that if there would be a Shrek 5, then it would be coming out much later. I think I said that at the earliest would be late 2026 or something like that. Maybe some of you in the chat wall probably do remember what I said, which one would be the earliest. But the point that I am making is that Eddie Murphy was the first one to go and spill the news that, yes, there is going to be indeed a Shrek 5, but now it looks like we got the true official word straight from DreamWorks Animation themselves. Yes, DreamWorks has now truly confirmed that Shrek 5 is indeed real. And on top of that, they even brought us some additional information that is going to be coming soon about this feature. Like, one thing they have immediately confirmed are the 3 stars that will be featured in it. Not just Eddie Murphy reprising his role as Donkey, but we also got Mike Myers, who's going to be coming back as Shrek, and Cameron Diaz, that shall be reprising her role as Fiona. But on top of that, we also know a little bit about who's going to be among the crew. And in terms of that, I'm just going to go and quickly read you here from my source here on Variety, in which they also added a little bit of an update about what's going on with Puss in Boots and if he's going to be coming back. And the answer to that is no. We don't know if we're going to see Puss making a return, or at least make his tremendous comeback after The Last Wish. To which it states right over here, Antonio Banderas' return as the feisty feline Puss in Boots is not yet confirmed. Shrek 5 will be directed by Walt Dorn, who served as a writer and artist on Shrek 2 and Shrek the Third, and as head of story on Shrek Forever After, in which he also voiced Rumpelstiltskin. Shrek 5 will be produced by franchise returner Gina Shea and Illumination founder Chris Meledandri. Brad Abelson serves as co-director. And it's interesting to note about Chris Meledandri coming in to go and produce this movie, because he's not the only Illumination guy working on this. Brad Abelson, being the co-director, previously he was also the co-director of Minions: The Rise of Gru. So this Shrek 5 is going to have a little bit of a touch of Illumination onto this. And not to mention that with Chris Meledandri, ever since Comcast went and fully bought out DreamWorks Animation to have it be a part of their company under the Universal umbrella, you probably do recall that there have been a lot of talks in regards to the possibility of bringing back Shrek, if there would be that Shrek 5 suddenly coming back. And they were considering about the idea of having Chris Meledandri to look after that Shrek 5, or this was back in the day where they were thinking about having Chris Meledandri taking a similar role to how John Lasseter was back in the day, where he would be in charge of both Illumination and DreamWorks Animation. But ultimately, he declined to go and do that because it would just be way too much work for him, and would rather set all of his focus onto Illumination. But I guess in terms of Shrek, he's going to give that one a chance and have his opportunity to go and work at DreamWorks to go and help out with that feature, especially if he is going to be a producer the same way that he has been producing many of the Despicable Me films and some of the other Illumination movies as well. Oh, and before I do forget, by the way, there is also the release date in which they have also confirmed, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit earlier than what I predicted. Last time I said that the earliest would probably be late 2026, but they might do a few months prior to that, in which they have confirmed that the official release date to Shrek 5 is none other than July 1st, 2026. So on Canada Day, we will be having the comeback of Shrek. And very interesting to put that release date, by the way, considering that the beginning of July would normally be reserved for an Illumination movie. But then again, considering that it is going to be the same year where I believe they announced that they're going to be releasing the second Super Mario Brothers movie, I guess they got more of an idea of how they're going to be scheduling their stuff. And also, yes, I do see in the chat wall right over here, they did state the obvious that there is a massive coincidence with what they are doing with that particular release date, considering that a few weeks before that release of Shrek 5, there is another animated movie to which it is coming from another popular franchise that's having their fifth feature, and that is Toy Story 5. So in that summer, not only are we getting Toy Story 5, but we're also getting Shrek 5 as well. And honestly, what a long journey that we have seen this Shrek sequel come around. And I guess it really is because of the history of Shrek that we have seen. I remember many years ago, I've actually done the history of Shrek. But I guess you could say now that technically there is a bit of an incomplete part that did happen right afterwards, because I've only chronicled it from the beginning of Shrek all the way up to the age where Shrek was pretty much accepted as this meme lord, where Shrek was one of the most popular templates to be used in terms of these surrealistic memes back then, around the same time as you would find with some of the Gru memes or with the Ugandan Knuckles memes. You know, it's like when Shrek would often be used for some of the most, like, randomest memes that you could go and ever find. Like, if a meme makes no sense, then there's a good chance that Shrek would somehow be involved with that. In fact, that is the age where we saw the whole Shrek is love, Shrek is life trend. But then as the years go by and that the whole trend of, like, random, you know, having Shrek as this random meme, like, kind of be subsidized, eventually, Shrek kind of returned to being viewed upon as this cinematic icon, being, you know, where people would go and share their fond memories of watching the Shrek movies, particularly with the first and the second. But then, things really changed up when Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was released. That was the real game changer for the franchise, and it was really the one that ignited the idea that people would definitely be interested in seeing more Shrek, especially with the positive responses that people have seen, like with those very tiny moments where they did reference Shrek. I've already talked about this a little bit when I discussed about like that Eddie Murphy related news, when we saw there was like that one quick flashback where we saw Puss with Shrek and Donkey, and then there was the post-credit where we see, Puss and some of the other characters where they were sailing away, and they were going into far, far away. So it showed that the interest for another Shrek movie, or to see the comeback of Shrek, it definitely is there. But I will say, though, that because of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it definitely sets the bar very high when it comes to the comeback of Shrek. Because the thing is with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it completely changed the entire franchise. It changed the entire look. It changed the entire feel of it. Like now, now Shrek has this brand new image with what they have presented. They're no longer going with that uncanny, realistic CG that they have done back in like 2001 and stuff like that. Now we got this new evolved, stylized look with what they've established with The Last Wish. And will they be carrying that over onto Shrek 5? that is going to be something that we will wait and see. And not to mention that with The Last Wish, it really sets up this massive quality that we would not expect from this film. Like, especially a sequel to this spin-off film of Shrek. Like, nobody would go and actually expect that, holy crap, like, maybe it would be fun, but we wouldn't expect that it would be that amazing, you know? Now, that's going to be a very tough act to follow, and I can imagine that after The Last Wish, there's going to be some high expectations with what people will go and expect with this Shrek 5. Will the comeback be worth it? Will it be as good as what we have seen with The Last Wish? That honestly remains to be seen. I don't know. And especially right now when we don't necessarily have all the information, we just got like just a little bit of what we do know, especially the fact that it's going to be produced by the head of Illumination. It's going to be directed by Walt Dorn, whom previously he did direct some DreamWorks films afterwards, including, I believe he also directed the first Trolls movie, but he probably did the first 2 Trolls films or stuff like that. Chatwall, you could go and help me out on this actually. He directed the Trolls sequels. So okay, so we do have no. Walt Dorn. Okay, so I got it. Okay, so Walt Dorn didn't actually direct the first Trolls movie. Okay, sorry for that mistake. Okay, he directed the Trolls sequels, World Tour and Band Together. Okay, so we got that information. So, and also the fact that it's going to be released soon, and the only people that we know are going to be coming back is going to be Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey. But also, one thing that I do want to know, and one thing that I am curious about, are they going to be treating this as a sequel to the Shrek that we know? Or is it going to be a legitimate sequel, like following what happened after Shrek Forever After? And by that, the question that I want to know is, are the triplets going to be involved? Are we suddenly going to have more stories, or are we going to have more of a plot line that will also be fixated, related to the children? Will they also be focusing on that? Because in a way, with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, one thing that really worked out is the fact that it not only worked as a sequel, it also worked as a reboot. So will they be doing this with Shrek as well? Will they be going and erasing some of the things that the sequel has established, like the kids, or with some of the other characters they tried to add, like with Artie, or if they would add like the other princesses, you know, like would they go and try to acknowledge that? Or even like with Rumpelstiltskin, for example, will they be including those characters, or are they just going to go and start fresh by just focusing on Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey? That is also something that I feel like we would have to go and wait and see. But there is also one more thing I need to go and address when it comes to this Shrek 5. And this is honestly a conversation that I have seen time and time again around the internet, but it's kind of weird because I feel like it's something that's not necessarily true. And that is in regards to the narrative that people would often say that everybody is excited for Shrek 5, yet nobody is excited for Toy Story 5. And I know there are those arguments that would go and try to emphasize this with the fact that, you know, it's not that long ago that we've had a Toy Story sequel with Toy Story 4, or let alone with Lightyear. But with Shrek, on the other hand, if you don't count the Puss in Boots films, it's been like since 2010, since the last time that we've had a legitimate Shrek movie. And it's because of that, because of that gap, why people seem to be so excited for Shrek, but not for Toy Story. But the weird thing about it is that I don't necessarily find that to be true. Even though that's what the internet says, I keep seeing at the same time when people would go and respond to it, like, and I'm not saying that people are not excited for Shrek 5. They definitely are. But I feel like the reaction to a Shrek 5 seems to really be pretty mixed. I would even say that it's almost as mixed as Toy Story 5. Where, yes, like I said, you do have that group of people who are hyped up for Shrek 5. They are excited to see the comeback of Shrek. But at the same time, I've also seen a whole bunch of people who are upset that a Shrek 5 is even a thing. That they are upset that DreamWorks is making Shrek 5 for the same reasons why Pixar is doing a Toy Story 5. And using those same kind of arguments that they would go and they would like bash this film's existence. You know, they would say the same kind of arguments that, oh, there's too many sequels out there. Hollywood is running out of ideas. DreamWorks animation is at a low point. You know, all those kinds of arguments, really putting down the existence of Shrek 5 and really emphasizing how there seems to be less and less creative original ideas that are coming from Hollywood, especially to the point where now they are at the 5th feature of the Shrek franchise. You know, and it's honestly something that I have seen like in every comment section when it comes to the topic of a Shrek 5, you're always going to find at least one person who's going to go and write down their pessimism for the fact that a Shrek 5 would come out. And it's because of that where I feel like, honestly, it really feels like that narrative of everybody thinking that Shrek 5 is going to be hyped up while nobody wants a Toy Story 5. Like, that thing obviously is not true. And it feels like it's just catering to that Disney hate bubble, to that little minority group right over there whom they would go and like, you know, like instinctively like hit the like button or give them a view just for the sake of like nurturing them with that fresh Disney hate, even though like there's a bunch of evidence that kind of show against it. And again, I'm not saying that, you know, people are not excited for Shrek 5, yet everybody... Yeah, I'm not saying, like, it's the opposite. Like, I understand the arguments as well that having a 5th Toy Story film is quite excessive as well. But I'm just saying that in the case of Shrek 5, yes, there's definitely a lot of hype for that film, but there's also a lot of doubt. There is also a lot of pessimism that comes with this 5th Shrek feature. And overall, is this movie going to be good? I think, honestly, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I feel like anything could really happen. Maybe this could be as good as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Maybe this could turn out to be a massive disappointment. Or maybe this could turn out to be something like Kung Fu Panda 4, where it's not the best, but there are some things that it would do well. But either way, we're gonna have to wait and see when that movie does come out on July 1st, 2026. And with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think about the announcement of Shrek 5? Are you guys excited about it? Are you guys not so excited about it? Let me know what you think. In fact, let's go and make another poll right now on Twitch, where I'm going to go and write down, are you excited for Shrek 5? So we're going to put in a yes, and then we're going to put in a no, and we'll see what the reactions are according to you all. So let's go ahead and see what the chat wall has to say about this. In my opinion, I feel mixed on the idea of a Shrek 5. While, yes, I do like most of the films, I think that the Shrek movies are, the Shrek movies have a pretty bad rep with the sequels, with the exception of the second. But on the other hand, I think that Shrek 5 could have a lot of potential, with a plot related to the kids, and maybe give depth to the characters, maybe like Puss in Boots 2. We'll have to wait and see in 2 years. Hopefully, it keeps up with the high qualities of the first two, and the second Puss in Boots. Alright, let's see what we got here. I am really not excited for Shrek 5. Having the Trolls sequel guy directing it, the Illumination guy producing it, and Sony partially animating it sounds like a recipe for disaster. Yes, that is technically true, since considering this will be part of the new deal in which DreamWorks Animation will have some of its animation be outsourced by Sony Pictures Imageworks. That is true. Anyways, the 5 Toy Story movies, 7 if you count the Buzz Lightyear movies, is too many Toy Story movies. 5 Shrek movies, 7 if you count the Puss in Boots movies, is too many Shrek movies. If Kung Fu Panda 4 was just another Kung Fu Panda movie, what's stopping Shrek 5 from being just another Shrek movie? And that's why, honestly, I mentioned that there is a chance that it could turn out to be like Kung Fu Panda 4, where there's going to be a lot of high expectations, and maybe some of them are not going to be met, but that doesn't mean it's going to come out as like a terrible feature. But then again, you know how the internet works. You know how the internet really, they had a period where they really hated Kung Fu Panda 4. Like, it's almost like they kind of shifted their focus on their hatred. Like, they went from Wish to Kung Fu Panda 4, or technically, like, well, it didn't take that long for Wish, actually. Like, they went from Wish to Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate to Kung Fu Panda 4. So, like, focusing on that hatred, like, if the high expectations are not met, then, yeah, maybe there will be some hate thrown on Shrek 5. But we will see, though. Anyways, glad to see that it still isn't Ogre yet. If this were greenlit, say, 2014, I wouldn't be that excited. I would have thought that they were Ogre doing it. Oh my god, how... I just look at your... I look at this comment, and, like, I'm just looking, oh my goodness, how many freaking Shrek puns are we gonna get through? Anyways, however, after how Last Wish turned out, I'm more than hyped to see how Walt and Chris Ogre see the comeback of the Onion Lord. My one question is, how they're gonna address how Shrek was Ogre saturated into a meme. As long as they don't recreate Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life, I'm game. Overall, I can't wait to see what's in store. Ogre pun. Oh boy. And by the way, we do have a confirmation here where apparently most of you are actually excited, in which 80% of you who have voted said that you are indeed excited for Shrek 5. So that is interesting to see. So yeah, there are some who are pretty pessimistic about it, as I expected, but a lot of you seem to be pretty hyped up. But anyways, let's go and read more comments here. So I like the first two Shrek movies. Shrek 3 is a guilty pleasure due to nostalgia. You were 11 when you were 2017 that you wrote, and hated Shrek 4. I don't have the greatest expectations for Shrek 5 by assuming it'll be better than Toy Story 5. As for Puss in Boots, yeah, I think I was right to assume they can't afford to bring him back again. I could be wrong, but again, Kung Fu Panda 4 and the Furious 5. I feel like people need to lower their expectations for Shrek 5, otherwise they'll be disappointed that it's not Last Wish quality. Yeah, that is true. So, I think we'll have to wait and see, but we cannot go and immediately set our standards that it's going to be the next Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I think that could be sound advice on that. Let's see what other comments would we have here. I actually do feel a little conflicted. On one hand, I do really like the first two Shrek movies and The Last Wish, and I could see how a fifth Shrek could work. However, I am kind of wondering if we really need another Shrek movie, and especially with the expectations being as high after The Last Wish. So I hope for the best, but also I was wondering why people are open to Shrek 5 and not with Toy Story 5, until I realized, oh wait, it's Disney, and people think hating Disney is cool. I know, like, some people would argue there are several reasons, but that's one of the unfortunate truths that we need to go and accept, that the reason why people are saying that everyone's excited for Shrek 5, but not for Toy Story 5, a lot of it is for clout and to go and find cheap ways in order to gather that Disney hate. I'm not saying it's the main reason, but it is undeniable that it is certainly one of the reasons that people are just saying that in order to fish for clout and to get cheap views and likes. Let's see now. What other comments would there be to go and read? Okay. Toy Story 5 and Shrek 5 in the same year? Yes, please. Let's make this our Barbenheimer, you guys. Obviously, Shrek 5 will definitely be a $1 billion hit. If it does that, then it's going to be DreamWorks' first ever film to earn $1 billion. Shrek 2 was very close enough to get that achievement, but it didn't reach it. Maybe this one will this time. We'll have to wait and see. I think for that one, though, we'll have to go and wait until what the, what the audience's reaction is going to be. I think, like, if it's really going to go and earn over $1 billion at the box office, I think word of mouth is going to play a massive factor. Because word of mouth is also the key thing that helped make Puss in Boots: The Last Wish a tremendous hit that many people now know and love. But when it comes to Shrek 5, we're going to wait until what the reactions are going to be. Like, I am not denying that it is going to be a hit. But honestly, we're going to have to wait until the word of mouth would truly be positive if it's actually going to hit that $1 billion mark. Because I'm saying right now, if it turns out to be on the same level as what we got with Kung Fu Panda 4, then honestly, I feel like it would be doubtful if it's going to cross that $1 billion mark. Again, it's going to be a hit. I have a lot of confidence on that. But $1 billion hit? I think we're going to have to wait and see on this one. Anyways, I think I'll read one more comment before we go and jump onto our next story. So, honestly, the anticipation is feeling high. The cast and crew seems very promising, and the direction seems like it's this project may be in good hands. Even if it sounds more like Shrek is given the Despicable Me touch, I guarantee we'll see something fresh and new from a returning franchise. Puss already gave us a taste of what the animation would be like, but I want to know what they're going to present for this feature, especially the narrative turn or give out the new antagonist, for example. Exactly. But all this to go and say that since a lot of you are pretty hyped up for it, and I know there seems to be a lot of concern if it's going to be good or not. That is something we will have to wait and see. But if you are hyped up for Shrek 5, then keep in mind that the movie shall be coming out on July 1st, 2026. And with that said, we're going to go on to our next break right now, and we're going to jump from one Chris Meledandri produced project to another, in which we will be getting back more into the present and discuss about Despicable Me and the historical record that it managed to break out. Alright, welcome back. Now, for our next story, we shall be going back into the present and discuss about how things are going with Despicable Me 4. And in terms of its box office performance, it's actually going very well. It's riding off the summer very nicely, still being strong at the box office. And I know during this time, like, if we would have some box office talks, I might as well go and get this out of the way right now, because some people might be wondering, how are things going as well with Inside Out 2 and its road to becoming possibly the highest grossing animated feature of all time. And so far, it is still going pretty well. Like, it's obvious that the signs that it's slowing down are pretty much showing. But for now, it looks like it is going to be a guarantee that very soon, as I am recording this, it will be surpassing the Super Mario Brothers movie at the box office to become the third highest grossing animated feature of all time. And now it's just going to be up to fighting against Frozen 2 and the 2019 Lion King remake to see if it can go and officially surpass that. You know, there's still a lot that it has to go through, but there is still that possibility it might be able to go and break that record. But this is not about Inside Out 2. I am specifically looking onto Despicable Me 4. And like I said before, it's actually still going very, very well. So well, in fact, that it actually just set a brand new record. Maybe not necessarily for the movie itself, but I'm specifically referring to the whole franchise. Yes, it is official. The Despicable Me movies have officially made history to becoming the first ever animated franchise to go and officially surpass the $5 billion mark at the box office. And I'm talking about specifically if you would go and take all the movies and you combine them together, not just with the first 4 Despicable Me films, but also if you include the Minions movies. So that is Despicable Me 1, 2, 3, 4, along with Minions and Minions: The Rise of Gru. Right now, their total has now surpassed over $5 billion. And I will even say that so far, with how Despicable Me 4 is doing, is actually pretty well. Let me just go and quickly refresh to see how things are right now. And as you can see right over here, it's so far still going pretty strong. As I'm recording this, the domestic total that it has is $211.1 million. Internationally, it has $226.7 million, making a worldwide total of $437.8 million. And this immediately puts this amongst the top 5 highest grossing films this year. So let's go on to the main page of Box Office Mojo, and if we look over here with how these movies have been performing, domestically, immediately Despicable Me has already placed itself right up there in 3rd place, just behind Dune Part 2 and Inside Out 2, which I'm just going to say right now, it probably would not surprise me if we'll end up seeing Despicable Me 4 surpass Dune Part 2 in terms of the domestic box office. And for the worldwide box office, it has already made it up to number 5, just behind not just the 2 sequels of Inside Out 2 and Dune Part 2, but also behind Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire and Kung Fu Panda 4, which honestly, I don't think it's going to be long until Gru is going to surpass both Po and Godzilla and Kong, so that it'll probably reach up to 3rd place. But still, though, this is just to go and highlight how Despicable Me 4 has been going so far. But at the same time, though, when Illumination has announced this record, or when the record in general has been announced, Illumination also revealed another thing related to Despicable Me and the Minions, in which we are getting, once again, another addition to the Minions movies. Yes, they have confirmed that there is going to be a Minions 3 that is coming soon, this time in 2027. So I'm just going to go and read you this part here from my source on Deadline, as it states, news of the $5 billion achievement comes as Universal last week dated Minions 3 for release on June 30th, 2022. 2022. We've already passed that one. Sorry about that, folks. Yes, June 30th, 2027. That film will be written by Brian Lynch, who previously wrote the first Minions movie and the Secret Life of Pets films, and will be directed by Academy Award nominee Pierre Coffin, the filmmaker behind the first 3 Despicable Me films and the first Minions movie. Coffin has also provided the voice of the Minions since their feature debut in 2010. The film will be produced by Illumination's founder and CEO Chris Meledandri and by Bill Ryan, who was the executive producer of the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Now, it's been already a long time that Despicable Me has already broken that record. You know, it's been like it's already been quite some time since it managed to go and break through the previous record holders with Toy Story, with Shrek, and with Ice Age, where it was able to go and immediately pass that. And especially with this $5 billion mark, I think it really does seal the deal. And I'm just going to say right now, we might not see another animated franchise get that record in quite some time, let alone even try to surpass Despicable Me. The only ones that I can imagine that maybe have a chance are going to be Toy Story and Shrek. And yes, that involves with their 5th feature. But again, that's going to really require having great word of mouth, not just positive word of mouth, but great word of mouth to really bring audiences to theaters the same way that people have been doing right now with both Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4, to really bring them in one after another, day after day, making millions upon millions of dollars at the box office, to which maybe they could have that chance of surpassing $5 billion at the box office for those respective franchises. Those are the only ones who could have that legitimate possibility. But when it comes to Despicable Me, they definitely did so at ease. And I think especially with the Minions movies, they have been a major help. Because one thing that you do have to keep in mind, especially with the Despicable Me films, the majority of those features, they have either almost made $1 billion or they have surpassed $1 billion. That, in fact, other than the Super Mario Brothers movie, Despicable Me 3 and the first Minions are the two only non-Disney animated films that have made over $1 billion at the box office. Again, that is if we don't also include the Super Mario Brothers movie into this. But with that said, though, each of them would go and make make more or less $1 billion, and the ones who haven't, however, are just the first Despicable Me movie, which still did very strong. In fact, it made well over $500 million. And now we got the fourth movie right now, which is still accumulating more and more money as time would go on and as time would surpass when it would be released in a new major international market. In fact, it's interesting to note that the last time we did talk about this, the international numbers were relatively low because there weren't as many that already received Despicable Me 4, but now it actually did show. In fact, for the international market, I think the last time I talked about this, it only made just above $100 million domestically, but now they just got a brand new addition, an extra $126 million on the international market. So already right there, you could see that major boost, and that's going to keep on coming again and again, where there is, much like with Inside Out 2, I think there is a possibility that we will see Despicable Me 4 could become the next Despicable Me film to go and make over $1 billion at the box office. But one thing also that I want to go and emphasize, and one thing that I just want to say that, I've already mentioned before, that it is pretty clear that we are never going to see an animated franchise even surpass what Despicable Me has done in a long, long time. But I think with the announcement of Minions 3, they pretty much cemented that for many more years to come, that we're still waiting to see on how Despicable Me 4 is doing, but then we're going to wait a few extra years, and then suddenly they're going to go and bring in a Minions 3 in order to go and really try to cement that again. Even if there is that crazy chance, let's say that either Toy Story 5 or even Shrek 5, let's say one of them would go and perform as well as Inside Out 2. That they would break the records and suddenly would find themselves among one of the highest grossing animated features of all time. For Despicable Me, they're not really going to care that much, because what they're going to do, even if somehow we would find either Shrek or Toy Story surpass Despicable Me's records, they ain't going to do anything. All they have to do is just wait until 2027 comes, the year after, and then they will reclaim their position with how much Minions 3 might possibly do. And with that said, by the way, speaking of Minions 3, because I know there might be some discussions of how that movie is going to be, I'm just going to say right now, and I've already seen a lot of people try to go and possibly discuss about this, but I feel like there could be a possibility, considering that we are talking about the prequel series, the prequel film series to the Despicable Me films. It would make sense that with the third Minions movie, I'm just gonna say right now, we might have an 80s movie on our hands, or at least the setting is going to be in the 1980s. We saw that the first Minions movie was set in the 1960s, and then the second film with The Rise of Gru is set in the 70s. And I do imagine that with the third movie, it's going to be set in the 80s, and that's where we might see a lot of throwbacks to some of the previous Despicable Me films. We're gonna get a whole bunch of references to Balthazar Brat, seeing him in his heyday with the show that he had, and we're gonna see at least one moment where one of the characters is going to be watching the TV and you're going to see a young Balthazar Brat be like, I've been a bad boy. Or another example is, we might possibly see Gru in his high school days. Like the things that they have established in Despicable Me 4, like with his high school of Lycée Pabon, and then we would also see the rivalry between Gru and Maxime Lamal. Like maybe there might be a narrative that they would get into. But then again, there is a part of me that I'm not sure if that would actually be the case, because one thing you gotta keep in mind is that this is a Minions movie. It's not about young Gru. It's not about anything from the Despicable Me world. It's not centered around that, really. It's mainly about the Minions. And as interesting as it would be to look more into Gru's teenage days and how he would be in his high school of Lycée Pabon and see more of the rivalry between Gru and Maxime Lamal, I think, honestly, they might not necessarily do that as much, and they'll just primarily be focusing on the Minions and see their little shenanigans of what they would do. It's going to be a lot more, of course, it's going to be a lot more about Kevin, Bob, and Stuart, more so than it would be about Gru. As interesting as that may be. But still, though, I'm still pretty confident that there is a strong chance that when Minions 3 is going to be coming out, it will be a bit more of an 80s theme, and that we will indeed be getting a lot of those Easter eggs and references to elements from the previous Despicable Me films. Even if, like, some of the things we have seen in Despicable Me 4, like Lycée Pabon and maybe Maxime Lamal, that they're going to be thrown in as cameos or Easter eggs, more so than actually play a role in the plot or something like that. I don't know. I feel like that's going to be something that we will have to wait and see. That's going to be in the hands of Brian Lynch and Pierre Coffin for them to go and handle, and for them to go and see how that shall be for 2027. But for now, we do see this historical record with Despicable Me surpassing $5 billion at the box office with the entire franchise. So I just want to go and quickly say congratulations to the entire Illumination team for setting that massive record, and a record that I am sure that they will be keeping for many years to come. And with that said, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to go and ask you all, how do you feel about Despicable Me achieving that new record, and how do you feel about a Minions 3 that's going to be coming in 2027? I would like to know your thoughts on what those things mean to you. All right, let me know your thoughts. All right. Anyways, let's see what we got here. On one hand, I'm congratulating the Despicable Me franchise for actually setting this record straight. And on the other hand, seriously, another Minions movie. I thought we were already done with the franchise, but I guess if the fourth movie is already doing so well, I'm not going to stop them anytime soon. No matter what I do, no matter what I say, it's just going to keep on going. But I'm not too mad at it, since if it's their franchise, it is their franchise, but where are they going to do about it? That, I believe, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, let's see what else we have here. It definitely is an achievement what Despicable Me has accomplished, especially considering the popularity of the whole franchise, and especially the Minions really did help as for the announcement of Minions 3. Personally, even though I like Despicable Me movies, I'm not the biggest fan of the Minions movies, and we are talking about movie number 7, and I really just don't want the franchise to overstay its welcome. No, I understand this feeling, and for me, I kind of feel like I almost got it. When I went into Despicable Me 4, I was honestly worried if I would get that franchise fatigue, but honestly, I actually liked it. You know, I didn't think it was like the best movie of the year, but you know, I thought it was okay. I mean, it definitely has its problems, but I will give it that it did make me laugh. I enjoyed a lot of these moments, so I cannot say that I hate it. It did give me a good time, And I do appreciate, like, there are some elements that are actually pretty good. Like, the animation is really nice, and I love the voice acting. In fact, they played a big role in giving the charm to those characters, especially like with Steve Carell as Gru, or especially with Will Ferrell as Maxime Lamau. I actually really like that villain, mainly because of Will Ferrell's performance. Let's see, what other comments would we have? I know that Despicable Me 4 will be a success, but I'm sorry, with the majority of the critics, I'm with the majority of the critics and say that it was mediocrity bad, and I'm just pretty much done with this franchise. I've grown tired of the whole formula, and it's pretty much into Ice Age territory a long time ago, and I won't be looking forward to Minions 3 or a godforsaken 5th movie anytime soon, as I heard discussions about it. Honestly, I do get it. You know, I'm not going to go and stop you. I'm not going to go and say, like, how dare you say it's bad? This movie isn't stupid. You're stupid. You know, I'm not going to go and do that reaction. I do get it that when it comes to Despicable Me, it's not necessarily for everyone. And with this 4th feature, I don't expect it to really convince people into saying that, no, stick around for more Minions. Like, there's a lot more in store. Like, it really is at the point where it's like, if you still like the franchise, then you're still gonna like what they will have with Despicable Me 4 and maybe even with Minions 3. So I do get it. If you're already tired of a franchise, even if you're already tired since like the first Minions movie or since Despicable Me 2 or anything like that, then honestly, I'm just gonna say I understand how you feel. I get it. I went through it with like a lot of the other franchises, like with Ice Age and especially with Hotel Transylvania. So honestly, I don't really, like, even as someone who still does enjoy the Despicable Me films, I get it. Anyways, what else do we have here? Congrats to the team of Illumination's success, and after seeing Despicable Me 4, I don't see why not. As far as I know, they do know how to make movies fun, and who knows what they'll do for the Minions this time, since my theory is to have them be like 80s spies movies, like in the poster they might have some new elements to play with. However, I will say this could be a make or break deal, for if the film flops, and I mean like plot-wise, I think I'll be done with it. Not entirely, but I'll still maybe like it. Yeah, and I'm just gonna say, even for me, like, I feel pretty iffy about this 3rd Minions movie because, you know, I admittedly, like, I do enjoy the Despicable Me films, but it's, like, the main Despicable Me films. I'm not really that much into the Minions movies. Like, I know a lot of people actually really enjoyed The Rise of Gru, but for me, it's kind of like, I consider it to be one of the weaker films of the franchise, so, honestly, with Minions 3, it's like, I don't know, like, yeah, like, I'm not even expecting anything that would be on the same level with what we just got with Despicable Me 4. But then again, that's just me, and I could be proven wrong when the movie comes out in the next few years. All right, any other comments? Let's see, oh boy. Okay, so here we go. I feel very mixed about this, even though I like every Despicable Me movie except for the 3rd. But an 80s theme would be so awesome, and I really want to give a hand to the Illumination team for $5 billion from Illumination. I think a 3rd Minions movie actually has some potential, but Despicable Me 5, nah, I'm good. Yeah, honestly, I mean, like, even I'll admit that, I think with, like, if they announce a Despicable Me 5, even I'll admit, I think I might revert back to the idea of, like, is this thing gonna give me franchise fatigue? Like, do we really need a Despicable Me 5? Then again, we don't need a Despicable Me 4, but I don't know, like, we'll have to wait and see. But either way, again, this is just to say congratulations to Illumination on that amazing record. And if you are curious about Minions 3, then keep in mind that the film shall be coming out on June 30th, 2027. Let me just go and have a confirmation if that really is the release date. Yes, okay, June 30th, 2027. All right, so with that said, we're going to go on to another break. And when we do come back, we are going to get into the insanity that happened during this weekend. And yes, we're going to be taking a little bit of a break from animation news, and we will be talking about the craziest news that happened this week, or possibly the craziest news among this year. So, yes, this will be a bit of a political discussion, but we'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. Now, before I go and continue, I just want to go and put up a little bit of a warning. Because, yes, on this segment right over here on this episode, I will be getting into some political discussions. And I know some of you may not necessarily be fans of the subject of politics in general, or any political discussions, or any discussions about some of the more serious subject matter that is happening in the world. So if you don't want to go and be engaged with this discussion, then I completely understand if you want to go and turn away from this segment, or you want to fast forward to the next segment that I have, like to the grand finale. I completely understand. But the reason why I want to go and discuss about this is because, holy crap, what the fridge was going on? Because, I kid you not, on Saturday, I was actually off the grid. I was actually just hanging out with my friends at the time, and during the moment that that whole thing was done, and I came back to, checking out what's going on online, holy crap, I just felt, overwhelmed and just shocked seeing all the different news that just came out at the same godforsaken time. And with this one, oh boy, there is so much to unpack, but let's go and actually discuss about this. Yes, I am indeed talking about Donald Trump's, not Donald Trump specifically, but the almost assassination of Donald Trump. So what happened was that on Saturday, Trump was in Pennsylvania and was doing his usual rallies, doing his shtick to go and rile up his base with the same kind of far-right talk and his pursuit for revenge against his political enemies and all that kind of stuff, doing the same things that he would regularly do in order to go and, have people prepped up to have his base to go vote for him in November. But then suddenly, out of the blue, there was a shooter. Someone decided to take their rifle and try to take down Trump. Now, of course, Trump was not actually hit by the bullets. At the most, he did get some scratches from the teleprompter that broke from the bullets that did, scratch his face. So, he did come out all right. But the sad news that did come out of this, unfortunately, it was actually the fact that there was a casualty, that there was someone amongst the audience who did not survive, that they were protecting their family, and sadly they have passed away. So to that individual, I will say, may they rest in peace, and my condolences to the family for that time. But what is very interesting to note, however, is actually the gunmen themselves. Because from there, immediately afterwards, people would go and ask the big question, what the fridge happened? What was going on? What is it that occurred? Who would go and immediately do this? Now, some people would go and immediately assume that maybe it was just some angry liberal, that it was someone who is very progressive, someone whom some would deem as the far left, who hates everything about Trump and wants to do everything to go and take them down, and decided to go and take that kind of extreme action. But that is not actually the case, though. When the FBI actually went and did their research upon who was the gunman, it actually turned out to be a 20-year-old conservative guy by the name of Thomas Matthew Crooks. That apparently this kid right over here was actually the one who was responsible in trying to take down Trump, despite the fact that his politics lean very much to the right, and that he is very supportive of Donald Trump, and yet he would go and do something that would be as absolutely as insane as this. And I know there has been a whole bunch of other news that did come out recently, like on the day that I am recording this right now, there's also been the news that there was a judge that decided to completely dismiss the case of some of the filings that that Trump illegally did that was clearly corrupt, that really exposes how that judge was clearly corrupted, or that Trump has appointed J.D. Vance as his vice president. But the big thing to go and emphasize is that this whole thing occurred right here, that there was legitimately an attempt of an assassination on Donald Trump during his campaign. Now, first and foremost, I just want to make this big clarification right now that this action right over here is clearly wrong, and that I condemn any form of political attack that would be on this kind of extreme level. Yes, I think it is no secret that I hate Donald Trump, but I would much rather see his conservative values be shot down and be dead instead of the person himself. I would much rather have Donald Trump be alive and just living the rest of his life in prison for the decades of crimes that he has committed, and I would much rather see all of his nationalist values, that Project 2025, I would rather see that to be dead more so than the man himself to be dead. So yes, honestly, this action right over here, it is wrong, it is not okay, and we shouldn't have these kinds of things happen in the United States. But with that said though, it's honestly very interesting to see what has happened. And it doesn't seem like anybody, especially amongst the mainstream media, really wants to go and actually discuss about why this happened, or especially to go and emphasize the fact that it's a Trump supporter that tried to assassinate Trump. Like, isn't that a little bit insane to go and think about? And especially with the fact that when you look at what the media is doing right now, like even with these articles that I have here, like with ABC News or even with CNN, the way that they would go and discuss about this kid is that they would approach it the same way that they have with many other mass shooters in America, because of the fact that it is this young, white, conservative male that they would try to go and paint him on a very empathetic light, or try to show him as someone who is not a bad guy, but is understood. They don't have anything to go and latch onto in order to use prejudice to really go and attack this individual. So they would try to resort to using things like, oh, well, this is just someone who has been raised very conservatively, and he was bullied in school, and also he has a bit of mental issues. He has a bit of like those mental problems that would affect his head, but this is just someone who's misunderstood. And that right there, like, honestly, every time that the media would go and do this, is honestly messed up. And this one, I feel like it is really no different. Like, I know for a fact that conservatives, especially Trump supporters, they are not fans of mainstream media, especially with things like ABC News or especially CNN. But I think in this case here, with stuff like this, where you would see the media be portraying him as like, oh, he's just a lone wolf. Oh, he's still a nice guy. That's just messed up. Like, this is something that we should condemn. This is literally the guy who tried to assassinate Donald Trump, and yet you're trying to show sympathy on him? Like, that's honestly really messed up right over there. Like, I don't care what the context of the guy is. Like, this is a legitimate monster. No different than any other mass shooter that has pulled their trigger onto people in America. This is just really messed up with the way that they're trying to do so. But the big thing that I want to go and really discuss about this, and one thing to really go and highlight that nobody really wants to go and talk about, is the why, or really what caused this to go and happen. Why did a Trump supporter would go out of his way to try to assassinate Donald Trump? And this is an answer that none of the mainstream media want to go and answer, because that would actually involve criticizing some of the tactics that Republicans are doing right now. And God forbid if we ever hurt the feelings of Republicans, even if it means we would have to discuss about the facts. Because the real problem with all this that I find through my research even is that this is the result of the conservative pursuit of political violence. This is really, like, the whole cause of this is because of the political violence that you see Republicans keep on promoting again and again and again. And this is no secret. This is something that is as clear as day, that you see that they would keep on promoting political violence, especially towards the people that they don't like. That they always fantasize of the idea of conducting extreme violence towards anyone that they would deem as the left or woke or anything like that, especially towards targets like Joe Biden, for example, or any of the more left-leaning politicians. In fact, there's actually a great article out there. It's this one from the website The Refrain, called "Gambling in Casablanca" by A.R. Moxon. If you guys haven't read this one, I highly recommend that you do so, because it actually chronicles the modern history of of Republicans continuously promoting political violence, especially towards the left, that ultimately led to what we have seen with the near assassination attempt, or the near assassination of Donald Trump. And if you want to know, like, some examples of it, there's actually one little paragraph over here that actually does emphasize a lot of what they have done, and some examples that, even if you're not into politics, you probably know as well. So here's a good example. In 2015, it was "lock her up," referring to Hillary Clinton and her email scandals, which ultimately ended up becoming a nothing burger. In 2016, it was Second Amendment solutions. In 2017, it was telling the cops, "Please don't be too nice." In 2018, it was "when the looting starts, the shooting starts." In 2019, it was "can't you just shoot them in the legs or something?" In 2020, In 2020, it was "stand back and stand by," which is the quote Donald Trump said during the 2020 elections when he failed to go and condemn white supremacists, and the thing he told them was just "stand back and stand by." In 2021, it was an actual attempt to overthrow the government, along with the attempted assassination of the vice president and Congress. In 2022, it was leading the crowd in laughing about the attempted assassination of Nancy Pelosi and the brutal attacks on her husband by a deranged hammer-wielding maniac. In 2023, it was calling enemies vermin who were poisoning the blood of the country and promising, "I am your retribution." So by that point, this is like literally neo-Nazi language. Like, this is at the point where Trump supporters have really delved into the realms of, like, legitimate Nazism. In 2024, well, there's been no end to it. But earlier this year, there was a predicted bloodbath and a never-ending litany of more vermin and blood-poisoning talk. And just last week, we heard about another American revolution to be waged by MAGA America against all the rest of us, which we were assured would stay bloodless as long as we didn't resist. And the Republican nominee for governor in North Carolina literally told his crowd that some people need killing. It's a list truncated by choosing only one item per year. It was a shockingly easy list to compile. You could double it, triple it, and not drain the pool of readily available examples. We haven't even touched on the constant open praise of dictators and longing admiration for their ability to enact shocking acts of brutality against their own population. And we're talking about people, rather it be like Vladimir Putin with the war of Russia and Ukraine, or even with Netanyahu with the war, or I think that's how you say his name, but with the war in it, like the leader of Israel with the whole war with Israel and Palestine, or with Gaza, or even with or like some people would even go as far and even praise Kim Jong-un with North Korea. But the point of the matter is that Republicans have a clear, long history, and something in which they would even be proud to wear. And this is something you would often see with Trump supporters, that they would love to keep promoting political violence by wearing t-shirts about it. Like even this example right over here, where you see a Trump supporter say, like, have a t-shirt that says "Rope Tree Journalists, some assembly required," in which they would keep on promoting violence and keep being fed like this constant fantasy of committing violence towards people that they don't like and actually get away with it. But it's because of that kind of violence that it shows an obvious flaw. And I think that is the biggest takeaway from what we have seen on Saturday with that assassination attempt, is that not even these Republicans are able to control political violence, because there is a way that this can really get out of hand and it could spill over onto their own people. And you have no idea how close they are, in which their need for political violence almost ruined everything for them. Like, they were saying that Trump was this close to actually getting a bullet through his head. And this is something that, honestly, unless they decide to change, it's not going to stop. And if they want to demand for more peace, if they want to demand for something to be done, that we need to condemn political violence, that honestly, I am all on board for it. I definitely do support that. I would honestly be more than happy to go and team up with Trump supporters to go and try to end political violence, to be sure that we don't have incidents like this to occur again. But this requires the effort of Trump supporters to change their attitude, to actually take action against political violence. And that is for more demand on gun control, and for them to stop trying to promote their own violence, for them to condemn the political violence against liberals like Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or anything like that. That the next time, if there was this kind of attempt that occurred on a liberal leader like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or anything like that, then they better be showing empathy and, trying to condemn political violence instead of just cheering on that this is what they want and stuff like that. They have to put in the effort. If they don't want to see this happen to Trump again, then they also need to go and put in the effort to condemn political violence, even if it's towards the left. They need to give up on the whole fascination of being more fascist with America. They need to drop the whole Project 2025 thing and the whole prospects of having a more fascist America. That needs to be dropped altogether. They also need to drop their need for violence against their political enemies. They need to go and drop the idea of whatever violent or terrible thing that would occur onto the left. They need to go and drop that and want to wish peace onto the liberals as well. And they need to drop any of the other things that would fuel that as well. They need to drop the culture wars. They need to drop the attacks on woke culture. They need to stop this altogether. Because otherwise, if they're not going to go and change that, then I promise you, this is still going to continue. Nothing is going to change altogether. And I'm going to even say this right now. Unless Republicans decide to change and be less fascist, and that they do wish more peace instead of violence towards their political enemies like the liberals and stuff like that, then this is not going to be the only attempt for Donald Trump. This is not going to be the only attempt that Donald Trump is going to be assassinated. I'm sure that within Donald Trump's base, there are multiple people. There are some who would want to be like Mark David Chapman, someone who loves Trump, who admires Trump, supports Trump, votes for Trump, but also wants to shoot down Trump for their own personal fame. And again, if they don't stop, if they're not going to stop their need for political violence, then it's going to happen again. Because that's the biggest issue with political violence. It's not something that they can actually go and control. It's not something like, oh, no political violence for Republicans, but let's do all the political violence for liberals. That's not how it works. If you're going to really desperately go and try to commit political violence towards liberals, there will be some damage that will be put upon some Republicans, and there will be people that you don't intend to hurt that will indeed be hurt. Or there's also the other very extremely likelihood that you're really going to go out of your way to try to do as much political violence towards the people that you hate, but the people that you hate, they're going to turn out fine. Like all this political violence that the left has been receiving for nearly a decade now, there's a strong chance that liberals are going to turn out fine, but the Republicans are just going to be completely destroyed, that the entire base is going to be absolutely ruined. And that almost happened with what happened to Trump. But again, this could be prevented if Republicans decide to go and change their ways and reject their fascism. But if not, then honestly, nothing is going to change. And even right now with how people are portraying, like with what's going on with like the result of this attempt, like a lot of people are just going to be focusing on, oh, what does this mean for Trump in November when the elections are going to arrive? Or what does this mean to the left? Honestly, nothing. Nothing is going to change if that would go and occur, because eventually over time, like by next month, this is going to be nothing more but a memory and people will be returning. This doesn't mean that, oh, suddenly we should have more sympathy for Trump. We should be more sorry and maybe consider giving him a vote because he went through a very hard time. Nah, bull crap. Just because just because he got nearly assassinated, that doesn't mean that he's going to go and win the election in November. If you don't believe me, then go and ask Teddy Roosevelt or go and ask Gerald Ford when that happened to them when they were going on their respective election and they didn't win. I'm just saying, this is not going to gain any points for Trump whatsoever. And it's not going to change that the things that he will be enabling, it is horrifying. It is dangerous. And you still need to put in your focus to understand what could be to come. And this is why, honestly, I highly recommend you go and educate yourself on Project 2025. And if you want like a good place to learn where you could go and try to understand and learn about what is Project 2025, I highly recommend this article right over here from People magazine called What is Project 2025? Inside the far-right plan threatening everything from the word gender to public education. And they actually do so in a language that is actually a lot more comprehensible for anyone to go and understand. Even if you're someone who's not as knowledgeable in politics, they actually wrote it in a way that is actually easy to go and understand. And you'll see that yeah, this whole thing right over here, Project 2025 is basically if you take Mein Kampf and you go and translate that into English. It's no difference whatsoever to that Hitler book. Not to mention that it basically highlights that Project 2025 is basically if you go and have Hamas take over America, including the same kind of anti-Semitism that you would expect from all Christian nationalists. So that is something that you need to put your focus back on, is that, yeah, okay, Trump had a near assassination, but just like what Trump himself said after the mass shooting in Iowa, just forget about it. Just move on from that whole thing. It happened. He's still alive. Now, shut up and move on. That's honestly the whole thing that I can pretty much say. Like, okay, it happened. Now let's move on and focus back on the real problems that are occurring if Trump would become president. And that is especially the case with what we are seeing right over here, not just with corrupt judges that are putting him above the law and making sure that he doesn't face any form of consequences whatsoever, but also to make sure that fascism does not enter upon America. Because let me tell you, that is what should be assassinated. Again, Trump is not the one that should be assassinated, not the man himself, but stuff like Project 2025 and all the conservative values that Trump supports. Honestly, that's the one that should be struck down and should be assassinated by government legislations that would go and codify that those far-right values should be permanently illegal and criminalized for good. All right, so now with that said, I know we don't necessarily have a whole lot of time for what the chat wall would have to say, but I'll just go and quickly read any of your comments if you would like to have anything that you would like to go and express on this little segment that I just discussed about here. All right, so let's see now. I was shocked to hear that Trump was nearly killed by a 20-year-old conservative kid. I was at my friend's house when it happened, and I didn't look up the news until later that night. First off, the assassination attempt on Trump is not okay, despite how terrible he is and should be in prison for a long time. I absolutely agree. Second, political violence needs to be condemned, and there should be no bloodshed in America, no matter which political side you're on. If not, this will get worse, and Trump might kill again. Exactly. This is what I'm trying to tell you. If the Republicans are not going to stop their need for political violence, then this whole thing will indeed happen again. Maybe not, maybe it might not happen this year or maybe not even next year, but I'm sure this is not going to be the last time that we will hear that someone wants to try to assassinate Donald Trump. And I can assure you, maybe that next one, they might not miss. Let's see what else we have here. The thing is, I'm not a political Republican or into politics, but I'm aware of Donald Trump's actions, and come on. I dislike the guy, but I'm not a monster to see a horrible fate to a bad person, and this guy was obviously trying to be a crowd pleaser for that. Not necessarily. We still don't necessarily know why specifically, especially when it's technically one of them that went after Trump. But anyways, thinking there will be a memorial or a parade if he succeeded. It's even ironic to know he's bad when crook is in his name. To state this needs to stop for this. I feel like it's getting worse every day. In your word, give a chance and gun control. Exactly. Like this, it's either peace for all or peace for none. Because if you still want political violence, then you know that political violence will be seeping onto their own party and really mess things up for them. Let's see what else we got here. What other comments? All right. The mainstream media should be held accountable and scrutinized for glorifying mass shooters by trying to paint them in what I think is an MLP-like sympathetic light, as all it does is egg on more and more of these terrorists, especially with matters like education, healthcare, and housing being unaffordable messes nowadays. Not to mention how the far-right loves painting immigrants and queers as sexual predators. Which is very ironic considering that not many people will talk about this, but there have been more documents of the Epstein files that have been revealed. And I'm just saying, on those new documents, Trump has his name literally all over it. So, I mean, if you really want to go and discuss about taking down, like, child predators and stuff like that, then you would be willing to want to take down Trump. Otherwise, you're nothing but a virtue signaler. Let's see what else we have here. This is honestly absolutely insane. The fact that there was a there was that tried to assassin Donald Trump is nuts. Honestly, I hate Trump as much as the next person, but wishing death onto him like this is unacceptable. And this is why I feel like we really need our voices heard in November. Don't get me wrong. Biden has done some stupid things as of late, but I feel like at this point, it's the only way we, along with this country, will have a future. Exactly. You need to be more aware of why Trump should not be in office. Even if you gotta vote in as someone as cringe as Joe Biden again, it's the best option to fight against fascism. That's what you gotta do. Like ignore the calls of people who would say that, oh, you're just exaggerating, because time and time again, people have been proven right. Even I've been proven right most of the time in regards to, like, who Trump and all his supporters are. So at that point, you need to stay educated. You need to learn more about things like Project 2025 and what Trump and his supporters want to go and do. Take their calls for political violence seriously. All right, I'll read one more comment before we go on to the next story. Again, I do apologize if I didn't go through literally all of it, but there's just so much to go and discuss. Let's see what we have. Oh, well, interesting enough. Well, I'm Republican and a Trump voter. I want this hate to stop. I don't blame Biden or Harris, but I don't want them to be harmed. I don't like them. I won't vote for them, but I won't want them to be harmed. But I don't want this craziness I want peace, fight, not violence. I'm honestly pretty surprised that a Trump supporter still watches my stuff, honestly. Oh, boy. But, yeah. All right. So, yeah, we don't have much time for anything else. But with that said and done, we are going to go on to one more story. We're going to go on to one more break. And when we do come back, we're going to go into something that honestly I feel like is far more shocking than what we got over here. And let me tell you, this is going to be one heck of a grand finale. So stay tuned for that one. All right, folks, it is now time that we shall go and end this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, this is one in which it occurred around the same time as all the other crazy news that has occurred on Saturday, where you do have the thing that happened to Trump that we have just talked about. And then there have been some other news like the passing of Richard Simmons, amongst many of the other things, including there was even at one point, some people have even mentioned that there was also, apparently Disney got hacked or something, and there have been leaks about some of the things that they would reveal at San Diego Comic-Con. I didn't read that much about that, but I don't think this is going to be something that would really harm Disney. But this one, however, I feel like this is something that is the most shocking of them all. A combination of the cartoon and also the crazy, but unfortunately in the worst way possible. Actually, because this is something that I've actually known about this individual, and there was at one point I've actually interacted with this individual. But I did not expect that this person would actually be who he has been revealed to be. And who I'm talking about is none other than Kyle Carrozza. Yes, the long story short of it is that unfortunately Kyle Carrozza has been arrested for possession of child pornography. This was actually revealed by the Burbank police themselves when they put out the daily arrest log, specifically the one that occurred on June 20th of this year. And it's actually the first two charges that you see that was given to Kyle Carrozza, in which it is stated here, investigators executed a search warrant related to an internet crimes against children investigation. Suspect arrested for 311.11 APC, as well as being charged for an additional 311.11 CPC. And to go and give you a little bit more details about the charge itself, it is actually stated right over here, reading from my source on comicbook.com, in which it states, Carrozza has also been charged with an enhanced, like I said, 311.11C charge, which is for individuals knowingly in possession of at least 12 or 600 images of child pornography. If found guilty of the charge, Carrozza will then be ordered to register as a sex offender and can be charged either as a misdemeanor or felony with 1 year of county jail time or up to 5 years of state prison, depending on the punishment. And for those of you who don't know, Kyle Carrozza mainly works as a storyboard artist. He was in the animation industry for several years and has worked on some pretty notable projects. Like, he has a pretty impressive portfolio in which he worked on shows such as The Snoopy Show on Apple TV+. He also worked on the Animaniacs reboot. He recently did some work on Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish. He also worked on Fish Hooks, and he even did some work on the SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. But the thing that he is possibly the most well known for is to be the creator of the Cartoon Network series Mighty Magiswords, which may not necessarily be the most popular show on Cartoon Network, even at the time, but it still managed to have a very good run, in which not only was he the creator, but I believe he was also the voice of the main character as well. So from there, and also, actually, there is another thing that Kyle is also known for, and that is the fact that he is also a comedy music writer and is actually part of the comedy music group The Thump. But as of recent, however, The Thump did put out a statement that they also had to go and let him go, in which I will go and read you directly from The Thump's webpage, in which it states here, "To say we at The Thump were all shocked to learn about the recent developments regarding Kyle Carrozza, who is also known, especially when he does comedy music, he is known as TV's Kyle, would be an understatement. We are appalled and feel completely betrayed that someone who was such an integral part of our community could do something like this. We are still processing the information and is still going to take time to come in terms with it. For the time being, we have removed Kyle's listing from the artist page and have removed his songs from the random player at the bottom of the site. However, we are not going to delete the songs or his songs from the archive entirely. To do so would be to rewrite history and deny he was ever an important part of the Thump. So his songs will remain in the archives. They can be accessed by paging through the archive page or by searching for them. Our thoughts at this time are with his family and friends and anyone who may have been victimized by his actions." And this is honestly, I gotta say, is just extremely shocking. Now, I'm just gonna say right now, I personally don't really know who Kyle was, but there was an instance that, like I said before, I've actually interacted with the guy. Specifically, it was for the podcast Escape from Walt Disney by Tony Goldmark, in which I was invited as a guest, in which we specifically did the episode, I believe it was The Ghost of Buxley Hall. It was this really stupid and crappy TV movie that you would find on Disney Plus. It's like so stupidly dated, but absolutely, it's like one of those that at best, it's like so bad, it's enjoyable in a way, but like still a very, very dumb film. But I was part of the episode alongside Kyle. And I mean, our interaction was fine during that whole thing. You know, honestly, I was just having an enjoyable time just being part of the podcast. I definitely enjoyed my time being part of Escape from Walt Disney. And honestly, I'm always down if Tony would want to go and invite me as a guest again. But this is also something to go and highlight, that considering that Tony was good friends with Kyle, often Carrozza would actually appear as a special guest, and a frequent special guest, onto Tony's podcast. He would keep on appearing on Escape from Walt Disney. And there's also another collaborator that Kyle has, and that is someone by the name of the Great Lukski, whom not only he as well is a storyboard artist, but also he is part of the comedy music group The Thump. And he actually revealed that not only will he no longer be working with Kyle, but at the same time, they used to have this animation podcast that they would go and do together, and that podcast right now is gone. It's completely taken down, and according to Lukski, it was the servers that ultimately decided that after the reports came out about Kyle Carrozza, that they would just completely take down the podcast. So unfortunately, safe to say that that thing is completely done. And it's also worth mentioning that Tony as well has also expressed his condemnation from Kyle, or that he condemns Kyle's actions, that he would no longer be working with Kyle. He's no longer invited as a special guest. And even and he kind of did the same thing as the Thump, in which he didn't delete the episodes in which Kyle is featured in, but he did put out a statement onto each one of them, mentioning how this was recorded before knowing of who Kyle Carrozza is. So at that point, we pretty much already know that for those people, like, I'm sure this is extremely painful for both Tony and Luke, and my heart definitely goes out to them, and hopefully that they can recover after hearing about this very tragic news about someone that they once knew, but then revealed to have this serious dark side. But strangely enough, though, I have seen some people, like, ever since the reports actually did come out, there were a lot of people that would since then go and discuss about their time with Kyle or who they knew about Kyle. Like, even before, like, the whole reports came out, I've seen a bunch of animators in the industry, they would go and express that, like, they don't fully know Kyle, but there was something about him that has this very weird vibe that makes them try to distance themselves. It's like that, you know, it's kind of like they had that spidey sense. It's like very similar to what we would see in Spider-Verse, where like they would kind of have like those same lines that would emerge, like what Miles Morales would receive. Like there's something about Kyle that something is like very off. It's like, I should not be with this person. I should not be connected to this person. So I'm just going to step away. But at the same time, there has also been some unfortunate, horrific stories that have been revealed in terms of the victims of Kyle, whom they would go after, especially for girls whom were underage. Now, I didn't necessarily get the full picture, or I didn't necessarily read entirely of what those stories are, but I know that they are definitely out there. And considering with what has been revealed about who Kyle actually is and what he has actually possessed, I can't imagine that he would go after underage girls and demand some pretty horrific things about them. And in this case here, of course, it is kind of shocking. Like, I know it is not necessarily the first time that we would have like these predatory like people within the industry. And of course, like John Kay is one of the most prominent examples of that. But in this case here, this seems to be like one of the most extreme examples where you would have someone who just got full on arrested for possession of child pornography. Like that is the one thing where like ultimately it's just flat out game over for your career or anything like that. So like I think it is safe to say that Kyle no longer has an animation career, no longer has any form of career in the entertainment industry. He cannot come back as an animator. He cannot come back as a comedy musician. Like his time with that is pretty much done. And the people he knew once, he is never going to be in contact with them again. Certainly. And I think it's safe to say, like, I definitely don't want to go and interact with Kyle again. I ain't touching that thing even once. So from there, like it is shocking. Like I don't think I could even think back of a time where there was an actual animator who legitimately got arrested and received those kinds of charges. Like this is like one step like really extreme. Like at the most that I could imagine is that considering that it is from Cartoon Network, like the most that I could think of that is related to that is that technically there was also the creator of Chowder. Not Chowder. Sorry, it ain't Chowder. I mean Clarence, the creator of Clarence, who was pretty messed up, and unfortunately, like he was one of those people that he had those he actually had those charges or those allegations. Yes, someone did clear up. Skylar Page, yes, that's the one who I was talking about. I don't think the guy was arrested, but when those allegations did show up of his interest in minors per se, he was immediately kicked out. And I don't think Clarence was immediately taken down afterwards. Like, the show did continue without him. But still, though, it was a case in which, like, there was a bit of a history that, yes, it even did happen within Cartoon Network. Like, I know a lot of people would go and joke about how sometimes on Nickelodeon, where there would be these people like John Kay or Chris Savino that, you know, there would be predators who would work in animation, but this is the case in many different workforces. And I think it unfortunately highlights a very dark reality when it comes to child predators, and that often you never know who it could actually be. It's not the same kind of image that you would go and expect. Like, yeah, there are some people that you would go and discover, like people such as Vic Mignogna or Russell Brand, where they would be revealed that they actually have a history of committing predatory actions towards minors. And when you look at when you look at their background, when you look at their personality, when you look at the kind of politics that they stand with, like a lot of these things, when they would try to desperately present themselves as conservative Christian men, and then you hear about those allegations with the evidence that they would provide, it's one of those things that you look at it and you would say, yeah, it definitely checks. But it does happen that sometimes it's people that you don't expect, and there are those that they can hide that very well. And I think that is the case with Kyle. Like, yeah, like some people would go and express that Kyle would go and share like some really weird behavior or like very off-putting behavior at the same time. But would anyone really expect that he would be this kind of individual, that he would have these kinds of legitimate charges? Honestly, no. And yeah, and by the way, I just saw on the chat, someone even brought up Justin Roiland. Yeah, that is another example. Like, Justin Roiland as well. Like, yeah, he may not be arrested, but there is definitely a whole lot of allegations where he would commit a lot of predatory actions, some of which were with people who are underage. But in this case here, like, even with that, like, even with Skylar Page or Justin Roiland, like, yeah, they got canceled and their careers like got full on game overed. Not like, I don't think anybody in the industry had a bigger game over than what we see here with Kyle Carrozza. So in that regards, honestly, it's just, this is the thing that for me, I just feel like it's massively shocking. Like, even on a personal level, I just feel like it's just pretty shocking. It's not just someone in animation who would get these kinds of charges, but it's someone that I actually interacted with, that I was in a podcast, that I was alongside this guy, not knowing that he would go and commit these very dark actions. So yeah, overall, I believe this is something that it should absolutely be condemned. And again, it unfortunately highlights a sad reality that when it comes to these types of charges, you never know who could actually be next. Maybe it's people that, yeah, you would probably like think they would most likely be the kind of person that would go and do so. But then there would also be times that there can be others that they would hide that very well, and it would just be like a massive shock when you would discover, yeah, they would be these kinds of people. And as for like it's safe to say, like, yeah, I've already mentioned this before, but he's canceled. He's done. He doesn't have a career anymore, or at the very least in animation or in the entertainment industry in general. And I believe, like, even with this kind of thing, I know some people have brought this up and have a bit of a discussion. I know Moist Critical did talk about this a little bit, but I do feel like when it comes to Kyle, and especially when it comes to Mighty Magiswords, I feel like that's going to be something that will be a little bit more difficult to try to separate the art from the artist. I understand that Mighty Magiswords does have its fan base, but considering how Kyle is, like, heavily integrated into the series, not just as the show creator, but also as like one of the main voices of several characters in there, it's going to be hard to go and watch that series and try to make that separation and just think about, oh, well, it's the work of the other writers, of the other showrunners, of the, and the other voice actors. It's hard to really go and try to separate that. So I think with the arrest of Kyle, I think the whole legacy of Mighty Magiswords has pretty much been tarnished at this point. And even at that, like someone even mentioned that Kyle does play the main character in there. So that's honestly the big thing to go and really highlight. So at that point, it's honestly heartbreaking. Overall, I think this whole thing, like, it's especially heartbreaking to the people that he once knew, you know, people like with Tony and Luke Ski and many of the other people that they considered to be friends. It's also very troubling. I can imagine also like his family, like the other people of the Carrozzas, that they're also possibly heartbroken on this. But yeah, it's just not fun all around. Like, I know it's like one thing for people to go and throw their accusations. It's like, he's a pedophile, he's a pedophile, he's a pedophile. But then when you actually see like someone actually being a real pedophile, that's when you realize like, no, this is something that like you don't want to mess with. This is not this is like not, this is not a fun thing to go and like pretend to throw around and just make false accusations about. This is like a real crime in which real people did legitimately get hurt. And honestly, to those people who have been affected by this, whether it be the victims of Kyle or people who once knew Kyle, my heart honestly goes out to them. So with that said, I would like to go on to the chat wall. And if you would like to have anything you would like to add in regards to this whole story, I would like to know what you all think about this. Let's see here. Well, I will admit I'm a little bit familiar with Kyle Carrozza's works like Fish Hooks and Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish, which is actually a very solid series. I've actually been told apparently A New Wish turned out to be much better than even I would expect. But anyways, I'm not too familiar with Mighty Magiswords. However, this is really tragic. The fact that he actually got arrested for these disgusting actions is just tragic. This really is a case where you have to pay attention to the people you admire and also separate the art from the artist, where you could still enjoy shows he worked on, but separate. And then the comment kind of stops there, unfortunately. Let's see. I never heard of Kyle or watched his show, and I don't plan on this anyway. He will be on the list of animators whose reputation ended for heinous acts, like John Kay, Justin Roiland, Chris Savino, and Skylar Page. This was a crazy weekend. Kyle being arrested, Trump almost assassinated, and Dr. Ruth Westheimer passing away. I remember watching her from Between the Lions on PBS as a kid, so she was part of my childhood. Do you remember that show, Matt? Honestly, I've never watched Between the Lions as a kid. I'm sorry, but I don't think I've ever really seen an episode. Maybe I was aware of it, but I honestly do not recall actually watching it. Sorry about that. I was a Facebook friend with this guy, and I'm disgusted by that fact. I'm not gonna lie, Kyle Carrozza's awful actions really made me sick to my stomach. After hearing this from Tony Goldmark, I immediately unfriended Kyle. I blocked him on all social media platforms and avoided him at all costs in the future. I absolutely do feel sorry for Tony, Luke Ski, his former friends, his wife, and especially to his victims as well. I really do wish him well. Yeah, of course. Well, I have never really seen Mighty Magiswords. I have no idea that the creator of this series was arrested for child pornography, and especially that you interacted with the guy before on a podcast. This is terrible news to hear, and I hope the victims are okay from all of this, or even you, since you talked to the guy. Nah, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I have my own things to go and settle, but yeah, this thing I could tell you is not helping. Let's see. I'm more disgusted because that show had a crossover with OKKO. I feel so bad that Ian JQ collaborated with that creep. Well, I mean, still though, like the thing that yeah, that's one thing to go and occur, but anyways, for the record, that was the only episode of that show I liked. I always found Mighty Magiswords to be very uninteresting and forgettable, and I'm glad I never got into it because its creator is interesting for all the wrong reasons, and he could rot behind bars for all I care. Screw him. Yeah, exactly. This was definitely hard news to swallow last weekend. I don't blame Tony or Luke for what they have done on their podcast, and if they are watching, Luke, I hope you get another podcast soon, because I love hearing from you and I love hearing how you like to talk about cartoons and things. And Tony, I like to keep hearing more from Escape from Walt Disney. Please be strong and bring more entertainment for us all to listen again and again. Also, I hope those victims, my heart is with you all. All right, very nice words there. Let's see, what other comments would there be? I think I'll read two more and then we'll call it a night for there. I do remember watching Fish Hooks and a bit of Mighty Magiswords, the latter of which I find it to be all right. The weekend had been really wild. The Trump assassination and now this. Kyle got arrested. It's mentally draining to see those events happening, but the Kyle arrest is really heartbreaking. My condolences and heart all goes to the victims and friends who have once connected with him. I'm very glad Kyle is behind bars now. Well, okay, he's not officially behind bars, but there is a very good chance that, he's going to be spending time behind bars, especially with the seriousness of the charges that he has, especially when there are two. Like, it's not, like, keep in mind that with all this, is like, he's not listed just not once, but twice in there. So I think it's a guarantee that he's going to be screwed. There is a chance that it's either he'll go to state prison or he'll go to jail. All right, let's see. Honestly, there is a part of me that doesn't feel very shocked about it. I remember when the creator of Clarence did the same thing and sort of had the same fate, and this is no different. I don't know him specifically though, but at least justice prevailed. Crime before it got worse, so there is some conclusion afterwards I can comprehend on the broken hearts. Sorry to say, this has been a nutty week. Minor question, when you interacted, was there any signs he may not be what he seems, any detail in particular? Honestly, it's hard to really say. I mean, the podcast is officially out, so you could probably listen to yourself if there have been any quirks that seem a bit off. Honestly, it was very hard for me to say because I only interacted just through audio. It's not like I saw a webcam of him. Like when we did that episode of Escape from Walt Disney, we would only do so in audio. So I only heard Kyle. It's not like I saw any of his mannerisms or anything like that. So it was honestly very hard for me to say if there was anything off from Kyle himself. Not to mention that it's been quite a while, so my memory is not fresh from that particular moment. So yeah, all this to go and say, again, my heart, like what the chat wall also says, my heart goes out to all the victims and to all the people who have been affected by all of this. And I do hope that you could find a conclusion to this and that you can move forward to be a little bit more strong, especially with that kind of outcome. I understand it's not fun to listen to, or it's not fun to learn about, actually. So with that said, that should do it for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And what a wild episode this has been. I know many of you have been anticipating for this, and I hope that the anticipation has been met. And I just want to go and say that if you guys enjoyed your time with AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, then don't forget to go and try to go and subscribe to the AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel or the AniMat Live Twitch channel, where you can go and actually see it live and maybe even participate in the chat wall. But at the same time, don't forget also to follow me on whatever podcast service you're listening to, rather it be on Spotify, Apple, or on what else is there? Not Google, but also Amazon. Yes, there is that as well. All right, so with that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, see you later, dudes.